5 o'clock. Welcome everyone, welcome staff, welcome councillors, welcome members of the public, the media, to what is an especially important day for our council. I don't have any apologies, but before we start, can we all please stand for including the public, please. Thank you. Amudia whakarunga, okay. As always, onwards and upwards. Thank you, everyone. Rightio, so while we don't have any apologies, I want to welcome Councillor Kennedy. Welcome, Michelle. Sorry for the early morning wake-up call for you. And also we have online, we have Stuart Cross from our helpers at Marston Low. We also have Warren Wasilio, Marlon Brandon, our friends from DIA. Are we expecting anyone else online? DIA? Andrew Stu, do you know where Andrew is? Just before I start proceedings, I'd like to know everyone that's meant to be joining. I haven't heard anything other than that he'll be joining. Right, yeah. We have got a few procedural matters before we go to you guys, so we've got a bit of latitude there. But welcome everyone online. Really appreciate your assistance today. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? The urgent business or late item is that we have to take the additional replacement pages that Steve's, everyone's got the replacement pages. Michelle, you've got yours sent through to you. Can you hear Michelle?
Yep.
Done. Thank you. So I take it that we've got those and I will move that we accept the late items. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Herbert, all those in favour?
Aye.
Those against, thank you. Move to agenda item number 1 of the procedural matters, which is just the confirmation of the minutes from the 18th of June. Someone to move them, Mr. Trunk, correct, please. Councillor Catherwood, seconded Councillor Payne. Any discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against. Item 2, welcome, Peter. Peter, you put a lot of work into, especially the consultation, but in giving us a lot of the information. I want to thank you personally. Floor is yours for just your update on your report number 2, please.
Through your worship, I'll take the report as read and take questions.
That's including you too, yeah? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And to your whole team, Pete. Questions for the team, please. They've been well thumbed through the submissions, I'm quite sure, and a thorough report, Peter. It laid bare every item of concern and every item of hope, and I thank you for the thoroughness of the report. Consequently, I'm happy to move it. Someone happy to second it, please? Councillor Wheeler, thank you for that. Any discussion? All those in favour? Too easy, Pete. You're off with good behaviour. Thank you. Rightio, over to number 3, which is the replacement water services one that we've got. This one here. So I'll hand over to our CEO, Steve. Floor's yours, Steve.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. I will take the voluminous report and all the attachments as read. As what was identified in the advice of additional information at the start of the meeting, there is a replacement set of recommendations that were made necessary by Waitaki District Council's decision on Tuesday to go in-house. Obviously, that decision nullified the original option 1 in your agenda and makes necessary an alternative option 1 that has a jointly owned council-controlled organisation as a model for the delivery of water services, and to do further analysis of the model being a combination of Central Otago, Gore and Clutha districts. Legal advice has been received on the matter, and these replacement recommendations are in accordance with that advice. The advice is helpful in explaining why it is permissible for the replacement option to be presented today. In particular, the following extracts from the advice are relevant. Relevant decision-making under the Act only commits a council to proposing a joint CCO arrangement in its water services delivery plan for submission by 3rd of September 2025, which may or may not be accepted by DIA. The legislation does not require the model for delivery of water services to be determined today. It is important for any council decision to enter a joint CCO to be informed by relevant analysis. If a council was to make a final decision now that it will adopt a joint CCO regardless of the exact grouping, then it may be at risk of challenge on the basis that its decision was not rationally supported by analysis, given that the current analysis assumes a 4-council grouping. While the advantages and disadvantages of each option set out in the report are drafted broadly and are not expressed to be specific to the four council grouping, they are informed by the prior and attached economic and financial analysis, which was based on the four council grouping. Therefore, to enable final decisions to be made in compliance with council decision-making obligations, the economic, financial analyses should be updated or recalculated or remodelled in accordance with the final grouping of councils. So, it is permissible to introduce the replacement recommendations. As one of a number of report authors, I also get to explain the replacement recommendations. Why was it necessary and why we can introduce them, I have already explained. What does it do? The revised option 1 and revised recommendation 4 provides for a joint CCO as a potential model for water services delivery, subject to receiving further analysis prior to submission of a water services delivery plan, allowing you to make that decision should you choose to do so. What do you have to assist the decision? You have the report in the agenda, which still has many relevant parts. Morrison Lowe was also able to give us preliminary updated modelling, which states, I can confirm that the updated modelling is indicating that there are still savings that can be achieved by the three councils if they were to enter a joint water services organisation. These savings are somewhat lower than they otherwise would have been had Waitaki District Council remained within the CCO, but exceed the establishment costs. This suggests that ratepayers of the remaining councils are still likely to be financially better off from the formation of a joint water services organisation than they would be if services remain in-house. Also from Morrison Lowe, given the early stage analysis that has been completed, I'm not able to provide the dollar figures for the savings. Doing so is likely to create a situation where the numbers will change again by the time the report is prepared. The following caveats, assumptions also apply to the analysis as it currently stands. Updates to reconcile financial information between the model and the Part B data provided by each council have not been made. These should impact the in-house and joint CCO options equally. No internal peer review has been completed to date on the revised modelling or assumptions. Transition costs have been reduced by approximately 1/3. The majority of this reduction has been applied to the estimate for IT system upgrades, reduced by 40%. This change may be reversed or moderated on peer review. It is worth noting that the combined savings through to 2034 are sufficient to cover even the original transition costs. Estimated operating and capital efficiencies have been revised downwards. We have not reviewed the concept consulting efficiency estimate report or attempted to model alternative efficiency scenarios based on that report. No sensitivity testing on a larger or smaller CapEx program has been completed at this stage. So that's about as much as I can say in respect of the revised recommendations. They've been brought about, of course, by the decision of Waitaki, and there's been a limited time to do anything else, but there has been time to produce the information we've just produced today. So having explained as much as I can about the revised recommendations, I would now like to turn to the report and the option recommendations. Even though I am but one of many report authors, I am the report author for Clutha District Council, and it is incumbent on me to advise you if there are any updates to the report. I do have an update. I have taken a step back since the Waitaki District Council decision and really looked at the report from a Clutha District Council lens, and I've realised the report is deficient in some respects. I apologise to elected members for that, and I would like to rectify it. Sometimes you get so wrapped up in the complexity of the matter, you can't see what's important. There were so many contributors to the report and the analysis. There was the consultation process and all the submissions. and it was all project managed well given the huge time pressures. The report, however, focused on a broad case involving the 4 councils as a joint CCO being assessed against a broad in-house case. You have to get to page 48 of the report to see CDC as an in-house unit, and the advantages and disadvantages listed on that page are still broadly based. There are no other references within the report to our unique situation. They only start showing in some parts of the attachments. The deficiency in the report is that there was insufficient focus on what it means if Clutha District Council remained an in-house business unit. All the emphasis in the report is on comparisons of a generic in-house business unit. In short, the Clutha District Council in-house business unit as an option provides no long-term solutions to CDC's problems that you as a council well know, but I'll remind you. The cash paid for rates is not just a percentage movement. We generally always talk percentages, but it is a significant sum of cash that people pay. Even reducing wastewater treatment costs by approximately $77 million over the 10 years as assumed in the Morrison-Lowe report, our LTP rates estimates for a typical Balclutha urban property by year 10 will reach $6,367. You know that's not affordable. The unit rate in our largest rural water scheme, the Balmoral Tuapeka scheme, is projected to reach the $1,000 plus GST mark in the next 5 years at the current trajectory, unless we can reduce costs, find an additional funding mechanism, or sell additional units. Limited debt headroom is left with the debt we have at $150 million today. And if we hadn't received an independent credit rating, we would have already breached our debt limits. The proposed rates increases over this year and next year for urban properties is between 20 and 25%, and this includes that you agreed to subsidise the rates increases that were required by using debt. The in-house operations cost for Three Waters is $21.5 million and growing. We can't get around the fact that we have rural water schemes subject to drinking water standards and the lowest density of connections in the country, leading to higher OPEX costs. The Taumata Arawai annual report highlights the improvement plan isn't stopping, it is increasing, and that involves capital and OPEX for Three Waters. The only significant discretionary feel-good contribution to debt was to Poma, but that was only $7.5 million out of $150 million of debt. You've made the decision to proceed with the Milton Swimming Pool and Community Library. When we had a major overspend last financial year, that's the year to June 24, and primarily due to bringing the Three Waters in-house, we only replaced staff who left where it was essential in the short term, and that has resulted in staff numbers dropping by 20. There's no option to make further cuts to staff. You've already looked at what would happen to services if you went further, and you didn't make changes at the LTP time. I can keep going, but my point, and what we should have expressed clearly in the report, is that for CDC's specific circumstances, the status quo of sticking with an in-house business unit option for Three Waters gives us no pathway to any long-term solution. You can put aside what external people are saying if you don't like being told by someone else. DIA will reiterate their position after me, and there's plenty of that in the report. But you can't put aside what you already know and what should have been spelled out more clearly in the report, which is we have to have an option that gives us a pathway to solutions. Option 3 does not do that. The revised option 1 at least gives us a start. Again, my apologies that it wasn't made clear in the report you have in front of you. The final comment I would like to make relates to the CE certification requirements. I'm required to certify that a water services delivery plan complies with the Act, and that includes an explanation of what the Territorial Authority proposes to do to ensure that the delivery of water services will be financially sustainable by 30th of June 2028. If the revised option 1 or option 3 does not comply, I will not be certifying the plan. I can say with the information we do have before us in the report, there is a high probability I won't be able to certify option 3. That would make Inevitable a facilitator. But with the evidence we do have, the facilitator can't wave a wand and make a complying water service delivery plan from option 3. Again, this should have been emphasised in the report. I'm happy to take any questions on the report or the revised recommendations. Stu Cross and others that were party to the report are available also if needed to answer. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you for that, Steve. Stu and Andrew, so that you know what our intent is, I will specifically have questions for Steve, and then my hope is to come over to either of you if you wish to make a statement or assist us in any way. So specifically, councillors, questions for Steve. Councillor Catterwood.
Just the figure that you used there, Steve, the 6,300, what was it? Just can you repeat that?
Yes. 6,367.
What was that?
Inclusive of GST. That's just we looked at a typical Balcliffe urban property for year 10. 2034.
And when you look at Balcliffe Centre's districtisation, that is all on-demand urban water townships. Slightly different for restricted.
So then in the report, the modelling from Morrison Lowe, for the 33-34, Three Waters was at 3-11, is that? From in-house? So that they've obviously used their LTP. So just find out.
Sorry, through you, Your Worship, that figure of 6,000, etc., is the total rates for that property if the Three Waters stays in house. So it's all of council rates as well as all of the Three Water rates.
Yeah, it's not just the Three Waters.
No, it's not just the Three Waters. No, it's the council rates. The total bill for that property, if Three Waters stays in house, based on our LTP figures and taking into account the reduction of capital for wastewater, that was what a typical urban household would be paying in Balcliffe.
Yeah. So, okay. 3-2.
Further questions, Councillor Valwela, did you have your hand up? No.
Not onto that, that's included.
Further questions, councillors? Councillor Finch.
Thank you. When we started this process, we were told that it was viable if we had the 4 councils all together. Now you're saying that it will work if we only have 3. Can we, like, you haven't got any figures or anything though to be able to show us that?
Through Your Worship, no, I can say what I said in the statement. Stu Cross, who made the statement, because is available and I think can potentially answer that question. Again, just have to remember that, of course, option 1 went out the window with the 4 council option with the Waitaki decision. So it was necessary, if you're going to produce something today as an alternative, you've got to do provide some information, and so that was the best information that we provided at the time. Stu can further elaborate on that.
And what we are considering, amongst other options, councillor, is that we would ratify the decision. We got an actual August, sometime in August, when Stu and the team, they've had 24 hours plus, very little, but sometime in August, we will get the figures and we will make final ratification.
Right.
We've got 55 days. That is the time, but Stu's there now.
So we're not making the final decision today.
We give a clear directive
That's
with the knowledge that we make final ratification in December when we have all the information. So Stu, my apologies for probably coming in, but either Stu or Andrew. That's you and it's Stu. Yes, it is. Welcome, Stu.
Sorry, if my voice breaks, I'm apologising in advance. I'm recovering from a cold and I've been losing my voice over the last few days. Yeah, I don't have a lot of extra stuff to add beyond what Steve has said. We had done, I guess, really quick modelling of what it looks like when we take Waitaki out of the group of 4, but as acknowledged in the caveats I think I provided to Steve, given that modelling was, we found out that Waitaki were pulling out on Tuesday, and we commenced that modelling on Wednesday morning, wanting to get something out to people that day. It hasn't been through all of the processes that we would like it to. And because it hasn't been through all the processes we would like it to, I'm reluctant to put an exact dollar on it, because I know what happens as soon as I put numbers out into the public. People hang on to those numbers like they are gospel, and I will be chastised next time I talk to you guys and the numbers have changed. So what I can say is that that there are still reasonable savings across that group of 3 that would make it more affordable than the alternative would be. I can't see any circumstance where, when that goes through peer review, that is going to change. The model we're working in has already been peer reviewed before we took Waitaki out of it, so it is, the changes that we've made are not necessarily complicated in terms of a modelling perspective. So I've got a high level of confidence that when we update the report, there will still be savings in there, and those savings will be, obviously available to all of the water consumers for the participating councils, which would be, the water consumers in Cluco 4 and Central Otago now. Like I say, I'm very reluctant to provide any firm numbers, simply because I know exactly what will happen if I give you a number today and people hang their hat on it.
Thank you.
Andrew, did you have anything you wish to add us? Welcome.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Andrew Strawn here, so project managing the Southern Water Dunwell Group. So just to add to what Stu's noting, so updating the financial analysis is important, and then flowing that through the decision document and the peer reviews that were conducted by Concept and Infometrics, just to refresh be sure that the analysis is updated to reflect the revised grouping, and that we've all got a group of a set of pros and cons against each of the options that we're all happy to stand behind and defend. So the estimate is that it will take about a week's worth of work on the financial modelling side, and the intent or proposal is to bring that back to around about the 5th of August meeting that was intending to set up for the water service delivery plan. That still needs to be confirmed with the team, etc. But that's around about when we will look to bring that analysis.
Thank you for that. So specifically to Andrew or Stu, other questions, councillors? I have a couple, just to clarify in my head. So for both of you, what you're saying is that you have ascertained that there is a benefit to be had in still going ahead with the joint CCO. The detail of this will be ratified for us. Excuse me, I don't have any intention for the public forum to be doing anything other than observing. If you wish to be interjecting or someone speaking, I'll be asking you to leave next time. Thank you. Right, my apologies for that, team. I'll gather my thoughts back again. So you're confident that there is benefit. You will be coming back to us with specific details on those benefits in the first week of August. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions, Tim? Councillor Ludeman.
I've got a question for Steve, really, and it's pretty hypothetical, but just say we went for option 3. Is the staff available to do the necessary work that would be required to be able to put in our plan by the 3rd of September?
Through your worship, yes. I mean, if council resolved to go option 3, then my job and the staff's job is to produce the plan. What I don't guarantee you is that the plan we produce is a complying plan. And I don't guarantee that I will certify the plan. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Further questions, Tim?
So that was a question I had. So Waitaki is saying they're going to wait 2 years, and then look at it again, maybe joining somebody else. So how would we stand as being financially sustainable for 2 years?
It is quite clear that in 55 days' time, we have to put a viable 10-year plan to them. I haven't got a clue, and I don't intend for my council to make the same decisions as Waitaki. You put forward a 10-year viable plan. There is no 2-year, 8-year hybrid, and that is yet to see what the implications are for Waitaki. But let's make it quite clear, in 55 days' time, be it in-house, CCO, or whatever, it is for 10 years. There is no hybrid model. I expect that DIA or someone else will back me up on that, but that has been rammed down to me in the last 24 hours. So we're going to be quite clear on that. We present a 10-year viable plan.
So just as staff to respond, the legislation's clear. Any water services delivery plan is not a 2-year plan. It is a 10-year plan. So Councillor Cathwood asked me, or I was asked, sorry, Councillor Ludeman asked, is staff going to be able to do a plan? Yes, we do a plan. The plan has to be a 10-year plan, and we assess it against the legislation based on that. So there is no option of a water service delivery plan for 2 years.
And it may be a slight window into what intrigue will come out of our colleagues in the next 55 days as reality strikes. I don't intend to allow that to happen around here. No. Sorry, Councillor Catherine.
So Steve, a lot of that plan is taking that information that we've already produced for our long-term plan. So where that modelling came from, Morrison and Lowe, here's our long-term plan. That's where they've got the figures from.
Yes, including
it's a bit more in depth of that.
Yes, because the water service delivery plan has a whole raft of information requirements. You will find that there was already comment from DIA about the information that we've currently already supplied, indicating the problems we have in doing something ourselves. Right? And the information we have is based on the LTP, but it's also based on the revised analysis, as Jill said. The savings we've identified around the capital program for the wastewater potential reductions and things like that. So it is all based on the latest, the updated information.
And that could be a good segue into the fact that DIA might be more a DIA question this line.
Oh, yeah, this might be for Steve and for Morrison Lowe, but just the figures in the modelling on page 98 in our report. I just see we had 27, 20, 28, the day that transition would happen in-house. Shows here is our 3 waters at 3.3, scribble writing 26 or 86. Our southern waters done well at 3.195. Just want to check on that, that it is correct. Then for the 33.34 on that modelling shows it now at 3.211, and our southern water done well at 2.945. Just need to check. The figures would be easy, wouldn't we?
2.985.
2.985. That's the modelling from Morrison Lowe.
Yes, I mean, there's been a lot of modelling from Morrison Lowe, so it depends which modelling and which report we're starting to look at.
But that in-house figure of 3.211 would be coming from our LTP.
That would come from my modelling.
Oh, your modelling.
Numbers. Well, what year are you referring to? Sorry.
Oh, it was in your report, page 98, through our agenda.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have the reports in front of me right now. So 3.211 and
was it in-house?
34, were you saying?
Yeah, 33.34. And it showed Southern Water done well at 2.985.
Yeah, so those, I mean, I'll stand by those figures, but they're not from your LTP exactly, because we do project out what your figures are going to be based on a consistent funding strategy. So we want to make sure, one of the things we're really careful in our modelling is that we're using the same approach to funding and financing and the same approach to how you set charges as what we're doing in the entity, so that we're not, that the differences in those numbers aren't because we've just applied different assumptions to the way that they're calculated. So that means that they're not necessarily the exact same way that you would have calculated them in your LTP.
And I think it's important, councillors, to know that, yes, the figures are important to give indication and trajectory, but as it stands, central government today is ruminating on what will fundamentally change the costs. Unfortunately, their decision doesn't come out until after our 55 days of ours being able to make a decision. So if we're going to get hung up on figures, do know that Stu and Andrew and the team constantly we're just changing them because the government's changing them. And wouldn't it be nice if it was a process that had some logic to it? But it's three waters. And today, the central government is ruminating that they're in the consultation phase of what will fundamentally change those figures. How ludicrous. What a situation that every single council in New Zealand is under. But remember, we're at the bottom of this pile, getting dumped. And that's what we have to put up with. So I sympathise with the plight of Stu and Andrew, because every figure that we challenge them on, they know they're about to put it through another calculator and another one when central government drips feed the information they know. So those figures will constantly change. That is three waters. Councillor Finch.
So the figures, there's not a lot of saving in the year 33-34 between the in-house business unit and the Southern Water Done Well one. Do you see that the change now with only the three councils would be a lot closer, or?
I'll answer a couple of questions. I'll answer your question, and then I'll just clarify my previous comment as well, which was, firstly, obviously the Southern Water Done Well figures that I said I stand by were for the group of four, not for the group of three, which I haven't presented to you. So I just wanted to make that clarification early. But in terms of the 32, 33 figures I think you were referring to, look, when we looked at that modelling, all I want to be able to say at this point is that there are savings in every single year from when the entity is established through to the end of your LTP. And in fact, if I looked out to 30 years, which I was a little bit reluctant to do given the quality of the capital program data and bits and pieces across the network, we don't see any year where there isn't savings available to the ratepayers in the community. So every single year has some savings, even in the revised model.
Thank you.
Further questions, team? Andrew and Stu, thank you very much, and all the way through. Thank you very much for the assistance that you've given us in one of the most extraordinary and challenging of situations for you. I'd now, if there's no further questions, team, like to move on to our friends at DIA. Welcome, Warren and Marlon. Great to have you here as always. You are the guys that make the decisions, so it's great to hear quite literally from the horse's mouth what those decisions are. I'll hand over to Warren. Marlon, the floor's yours.
I'll kick off that. Thank you very much, Mayor and Councillors. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. Firstly, can I just start by saying, relaying support and appreciation from Minister of Local Government Simon Watt for the work that's been done to date, developing this proposal, the group model and the long-term thinking that it reflects, and I would go as far as to say it's a shining light in South Island in terms of thinking to develop this proposal for consideration, and further to commend your staff and the consultant team that sit behind this work and what's been quite a challenging time frame to develop this work. And as I say, just want to convey the appreciation and acknowledgement from the Minister, who has spoken about this on a regular basis. So with that, I'm just going to very quickly talk about some of the process related matters, and then hand over to Marlon, who's able to draw on it, deep experience and knowledge in the sector, but also insight into the policy development and further looking ahead in terms of implementation today. So hopefully that's of assistance as you make your decisions today. The particular area of process that I'd like to speak to is post-September 3rd. So when the water service delivery plan that is submitted, and just talk through the options and possible paths through from that point. So obviously, the water service delivery plan is submitted and it meets the financial sustainability test, then that's given the pass, that's assessed by DIA, and then you shift into an implementation phase. That's all relatively straightforward. But I guess the important thing to be aware of is the possible outcomes if the test of financial sustainability is not met with the water service delivery plan on that date. Now, in a situation where perhaps a model is put forward, it's drawing on all the various mechanisms that have been made available through the legislation, but it's not quite there, you're more likely to have what's called a Crown facilitator put in place. That'll have a very constructive approach to the work and just work with the councils to get that proposal across the line. The other option is a lot more formal, and that is a Crown specialist. And if we were to look at a water services plan that was just, there was no realistic possibility of it meeting the test, then you're more likely to go down that formal path with the Crown specialist. And just to help you understand the nature of that role, it's akin to a Crown observer under the Local Government Act. So at that point, very much a formal role, very clear directives and delegated powers to make decisions. And I just, at this point, before I talk further about how that role would proceed, I just want to pick up on a point of conversation both here today and earlier this week in Waitaki. And this abused people of the notion that there's an option that gives more time by suggesting that at a later date we'll come together and further explore a group model. Let me be absolutely clear about this. On the 3rd of September, the water service delivery plan that is submitted is the one that will be assessed, and any commentary around potential further discussions and future models, that's great. We will, as DIA, continue to have those discussions and work with you, but it's irrelevant in terms of consideration of the plan. The only plan that will be assessed is the model that's put forward on 3rd of September. So, for example, Waitaki, earlier this week, we're talking about a future date, which we'll explore further. That's great. We'll work with them and have that conversation, but it will have no bearing at all on the assessment that's made of their water services plan. So on 3rd of September, their decision is to go along with the in-house business unit. That's what will be assessed. And if that model does not meet the test, then they will be subject to the options for intervention as made available to the Minister through the legislation. And I'm going to come back and talk further a little bit more about the specialist role. So hopefully that's really clear. Likewise with Waitaki, the Eastern Bay of Plenty examples we discussed, Rotorua in particular, again, sort of a red herring in that some notion that buys more time. That's not the case whatsoever. It's the plan that's submitted on 3rd September is the one that will be assessed. So I hope that's very clear now. Back to the Crown specialist role. Generally, that's to be avoided. Essentially, if the Crown specialist is put in place by the Minister, the perception there is that is because the Council has failed to develop a financially sustainable plan over the longer term, and therefore there's a need for a specialist, Crown specialist, as I say, akin to the Crown Observer under the LGA. And the important part about that section, of course, is the loss of control. And there's an interesting conversation that we've heard in the various meetings that we've attended around council control being a significant consideration. Well, again, let me be very clear. If the Crown specialist is put in place, the council has actually lost control. It's lost control over its own destiny in terms of the shape of the and the options within the water service delivery plan, because it will be the sole objective of that person appointed into that role to then deliver a plan that the council have failed to meet in terms of the test. And their focus will be on ensuring that that is financially sustainable, which includes consideration of council funding. So it's not just, doesn't impact just on 3 waters. It actually it allows that role to go into other expenditure and say, no, that needs to be pulled back and then focus redirected into 3 water investment, or it can also have discretion over rating decisions, so revenue streams to fund the investment. So again, I want to be really clear about that. Control, that role will take control of those decisions. Yeah, so hopefully that's clear. We're talking hypothetically, and I just want to be sure that the decision is made by you as a council is an informed one. So you want to be clear about what the options are. Ultimately, those decisions are the ministers, as officials, we will provide advice, but those will be the 2 options available to the minister, and ones that he will take and move very quickly in the overall objective for this government to have financially sustainable water service delivery plans and to ensure that every New Zealander has access to clean drinking water and necessary investment over the long term. So with that, I'm going to at the end be available to answer any questions, but I'd like to hand over to Marlon to talk through the what we're seeing across the country and a little bit more detail around what we have here in front of us. Proposal. Thank you. And the email.
Thanks, Warren, and kia ora, councillors. And I suppose apologies, actually. I've been on this program helping the government now for 4 or 5 years, and I haven't had a chance to come down and brief you in person. So I'm not a big fan of doing things online, and had the pleasure of meeting there, Brian, a number of times, and Steve. So it's always pleasing. But I actually might start with them. The CEO and Mayor have been open and transparent with information for DIA. Our assessment has recognised some of the challenges that Clutha has had, and I know Steve mentioned some of them during his discussion, but what we're seeing around your council in particular is things like high water consumption, high water losses, non-compliance challenges, high charges over 10 years, finance costs increasing, high debt levels, capex required is high, no growth recorded, support costs get the same as OPEX costs. So there are a number of challenges that need to be addressed through any water service delivery plan in order to meet our investment and financial sufficiency tests. But some of the good stuff that has been happening is you've been a willing council in sharing with other neighbouring councils, which from an observer's perspective is been really interesting, and I've identified a few things around the strong leadership that's been shown in the region. And what we've seen through 4 entities, and I'll talk about the 3 soon, but it was noted that that was financially sustainable and or financial sustainability could be achieved. I think through the group situation, we were seeing greater levels of long-term resilience. There was this continuation with local decision-making. Obviously, scale is a pathway for greater opportunity. My background is 20 years in the water industry. Before I came to help the government, I was the acting chief executive of Watercare in Auckland. So I am biased towards scale and I understand what that means. So take that for what it's worth. But I also sit here and take a view of a customer in your region and consider the fact that there will be double-digit price increases with an in-house solution, and what the government's bringing in through its objectives, and I will restate them. Local water done well has 4 objectives. Local is the key one, obviously, and decision-making, accountability, and all the things that support that. The government also wants higher levels of professionalism. So, greater accountability, greater technical skills in delivering water services. There is a pathway that says they want councils working more collectively together. and the level of consistency needs to be throughout New Zealand, and that consistency has been introduced through the likes of the Water Service Authority and Commerce Commission, who will be overseeing the regulatory functions that will provide that consistency for the government. So, with that in mind, I suppose I can give some observations around what I've seen through 4 councils down to 3. As I've said, you've been open and transparent with the information. We'll work with your suppliers to talk about what financial sustainability looks like. And I can make an initial assessment to say that while that 4 council grouping is not an option right now, if 3 is an option, then from what we've seen, given the conservative nature of the numbers that you've been presented, it is likely to be okay, right, if you went with the 2 other councils. I can't give the same level of assurance and confidence going in-house. So I just want you to be clear. I want to be really clear about our position, and we'll get further information as the team pull together the numbers with some certainty. But I've been quite open and transparent today, and I might leave it there, Mayor. But what I can tell you around the country, just as Warren alluded at the beginning, is we have around 70% of councils currently collectively working together to form a joint arrangement. And within the whole country, 80% will have a CCO as an outcome. And I make no bones about what that means. The legislation is driven to support a CCO. There are a number around your neighbouring area, Queensland, for example, that will set up a CCO, but that will be them as individuals. So that's why the 80% is higher than 70% working collectively together. But on that note, Mayor, I might pass back to you and I'll ask any questions, please.
Thank you for that, Warren and Marlon. Really appreciate it. Can I say, team, that consistently over, especially the last 3 or 4 months, I've tried to articulate to you the precarious nature of Clutha's unique circumstances. The messaging that Warren and Marlon has given today, I've had a number of times, but that's the sternest. So just for clarification, I'll go to you, Warren. Just on the delicacy, shall we say, between a facilitator and a Crown specialist. A facilitator can intervene tomorrow, whereas a Crown specialist, you have to wait until after August the 3rd. That's correct, isn't it?
Correct.
So a facilitator team may sound like it's kumbaya. What do we say? It's working with council around the table. So when the facilitator says black and we say white, they're the ones that are, let's remember the pecking order. Is it correct that a facilitator, while working with us, if they were pushed into a corner, there would be no hesitation to just change the name tag and it'll be a water specialist?
Yeah, absolutely correct, Brian.
And so, guys, you're walking into an election, most of you, some of you. I've heard over and over again, control. We do not want to lose control. A facilitator, for all intents and purposes, you have. The Crown Water Specialist, you walk out that door. You let down your public, you let down the people that we're privileged to serve, and they decide. They and only they. And if we allow today that opportunity, it is not us that can come back and do anything. It's those 2 guys there and the minister. We talk of control. That is the control we have left. There's the door. Am I correct in saying that, team? Yep.
That's correct. I mean, the facilitator before 3rd of September has a lot different role to after 3rd of September.
Yep, that name tag can get flipped around in about 2 minutes. Further questions, teams? Councillor Graham, followed by, hold on, I've got a flurry, but I'll get you.
Yeah, Warren, I take it that Waitaki was aware of the consequences if a Crown specialist comes in? Were they aware of that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to their thinking, but they were certainly provided with the information. But I'd have to say, hearing the discourse at that meeting, there may have been differing levels of understanding of the implication.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I can only mention what I did when I met with them my role at the council meeting that I went to with them was to talk about the impact of economic regulation and the regulation impact on the council. So I was just highlighting that there is no such thing as the status quo in this situation because of regulation.
Okay.
I'll go Councillor Payne and then McCroskey, I think, is here.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thanks for that, guys. Look, Brian actually asked a couple of the questions I was going to, but just to further that a little bit more, I'll put it in my way plain language. Crown facilitator is assistance. Crown specialist is we're out really, aren't we? And they will make the decisions and will land where they want us to land. And actually, the privilege of having that comes at a cost to the ratepayer. Am I right in saying that? That's a yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I just wanted to establish. Yeah, okay.
Councillor McCroskey.
Probably Warren. With Crown control, you say it still has to be financially sustainable. Is that sustainable to the council or sustainable to ratepayers? Because there is a difference. If you're trying to make the council do something and pay for it, then the ratepayers are still paying.
Yeah, correct. Marlon might be a better place.
I can answer that. The sustainability aspect we're taking is the view of the regulator, the future regulator, so Commerce Commission. So I'm not sure how familiar the council is with economic regulation, but you don't have to go far to look. There's plenty of regimes in Australia that are doing it pretty well, but their sole focus is on benefits for the consumer or the customer or the ratepayer, right? So they'll take a view that is this the right price that customer would be paying in the most efficient market for delivery of water services. So that's the viewpoint they're taking. So it is purely about what the consumer impact is, not necessarily what's best for the council, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. So we go Councillor Ludeman, Catherine Whitman.
So just a bit of clarification around the Crown specialist. If they say was appointed, is their main role on water, basically, or will they look at the whole objective of council? So that's my concern. Is it an overall, or is it just on the water?
In practice, the focus is on water. They will be put in place to develop financially sustainable water service delivery plan. But my point was that in doing that, they will have access to look across the council expenditure. They will have the ability to look at council's revenue to fund the necessary investment in the Three Waters infrastructure. So yes, a purpose of Three Waters delivery, but was to go outside and across all the council finances to enable them to develop that plan.
And another good example is where there are intended to be shared services that specialists would look at, for example, a finance service and say, what is the right allocation to that water entity? So it would have to assess all of the council finance costs to make that allocation at a more detailed level.
Thanks for that clarification.
Councillor Catherwood, followed by CEO Steve.
Yeah, probably for Warren, but so the council facilitator is one with the smaller stick that comes and works with the council. What's the skill set of a Crown facilitator that comes into work? Before, you know, if the Crown facilitator came and identified issues that could be rectified to then create a sustainable way forward, before you get to the full control situation, what type of skill set does that Crown facilitator actually bring? What's their skill set that they bring to the council?
Yeah, that'll be varied. We are yet to have discussions with the minister around specific individuals, but the skill set you'll be drawing on will be commercial, will be in the field of infrastructure, and so yeah, potentially governance. But yeah, particularly commercial and sector, infrastructure sector knowledge will be
I'd add to that, sorry, Warren, I'd add to that by saying, you know, they'll need to be aware of the council environment. and have a set of negotiating skills in order to make sure stakeholders across any potential outcome are managed through that process.
So they work with the political, us as councillors, along with staff as well, facilitating.
That's right.
Yes, Your Worship. Ron and Marlon, if council resolves to go down option 3, which is submit an in-house business unit plan, information in our reports already suggest that the in-house business unit plan won't meet the financial sustainability tests. Does a facilitator or specialist, when they look at the options to achieve a financially sustainable water service delivery plan, do they then bring in options that could include joint CCOs as opposed to just looking at an in-house option?
Yeah, potentially, Steve, but there's some nuances to this. So let's talk hypothetically for now. If Booth were to submit the plan that didn't meet that test, and the facilitator was, a Crown specialist put in just for Booth, then they can't make decisions necessarily. They can't force other councils to join up to. It may be the position they land in and say this is actually the best option to develop it further and have further conversations with the other councils. But they wouldn't be able to direct it from that position. If, however, again, hypothetically, the 4 councils were struggling and were unable to provide a financially sustainable plan, then the minister may put the Crown facilitator or specialist in on all 4. And in that scenario, yes, it would be within their ambit to put forward a plan that joins those councils together. But that all depends on the appointment of the position and what other councils are doing. So wouldn't be able to force it if it was just Booper only, but to still come up with that recommendation and the further discussions would take place.
Warren, just because I didn't actually think that it encompassed anything other than 3 waters for a Crown Water specialist. If they had autonomy as such or total control over all council operations, if a specialist was to be put in, as you could on September the 4th, does the council still have an election? Councillors are gone. Well, they're gone. Well, that's what I'm trying to get. You have no say on water, and you sort of have no say on anything else. So, do you have an election?
Good question. Yeah. Well, yes, the requirements of other legislation still remain in place.
Can I just intervene there? Like when Tauranga got the commissioner in, the Tauranga city was not represented, electoral representation for two, as I take it, 2 terms. So it can be that once that there's an intervention, there is no election, that supersedes the Electoral Act, obviously.
Oh, sorry, Your Worship, I just say
That's a
done under
commission.
different.
Yeah, I know
different
that's why I'm trying to get.
And so I don't like it's a specialist is a separate position, and it doesn't impact on your political representation positions. It does impact on control, but there's nothing in there that I see that would suddenly turn you into a Tauranga City Council Commission operation where the councillors go home. You might argue
What's the
in
point?
principle it goes home because you might not have control, but it doesn't change your position.
What would you do? But anyway, further questions to Councillor McAtaman.
Yeah, I think a question for Marlon. I just want to change subject a wee bit and shift on to that report that we received the other day, the assessment report. You have estimated quite higher significant savings than what Morrison noted. The cynic in me always believes that, and I'll say this for government and council, that we often overestimate the benefits and underestimate the costs. And I'm just wondering there's quite a discrepancy there.
Look, it's a great question. So let me just give you a little bit of background on the setups I've done. So I set up CCO in 2006, Manukau Water Limited. That was pulled out of the council activities. Set up at $1 billion worth of assets, about 100 million worth of revenue. I and the executive team pulled out about 20% cost savings in the first year. We did the Super City in 2009. I was one of 3 people that led that. We pulled out 25% within 2 years. I did the Waikato District Council contract. I negotiated with Waikato to take over their services, and you could speak to Gavin Iron or any of the Waikato District Councillors. Within that contract, we pulled out about 18 to 20%. So, look, that's my experience. I would go up against any consultant who tells you anything different, and I can tell you what happens internationally because I've seen about 8 or so integrations, amalgamations across the world, and none of them received less than 15% benefit, and that benefit was received within 3 years. So, look, I can only go off the experience I've got, but I'll back myself against any consultant in New Zealand with the level of consulting with the level of work that I've done.
Yeah, and the other query I have was there was a reference to rural water schemes, just saying how unique they were, but in the reports we got, they were just lumped in as one connection. We had a very high operating cost per connection and also a very high debt per connection. Yeah,
and that's not fair. I appreciate that. I mean, the acceptable solutions stuff, I'm not sure how much has been factored into the capital required to deliver that effectively. I know they're still working through that. I know Twitter has a strong foothold with the Water Service Authority in delivering that successful outcome. I can see savings, just as I can see savings with the wastewater standards that are being implemented. There's a whole heap of variables that will help improve the situation, not only for Clutha, but for many councils across New Zealand. So, that's a bit of naivety on our side in interpreting that information without a real line of sight to what it is.
Yeah, because the reality is that much of that expense, I mean, I'm a farmer myself, we've got 4 connections and 2 houses off 1 connection, but we've also purchased 26 units of water. So we actually pay a lot of operating expenses. I'm sure there's efficiencies there, but basically in our system, we've got to be compared to, for me, it's farm working expense. It's not a household.
I agree with you, Councillor. I think one of the things, though, that scale does bring is the ability to have specialists who can focus on that. But there are a number of councils around you that have these rural schemes, and in the North Island as well, there's a number of councils that have rural schemes. And every council will sit here and tell me that that's a unique set of skills and unique requirements, and I agree. But what I'm not disagreeing with the fact that that is unique. What I'm saying is by having scale, you'll give it specific focus, and you can have a team dedicated to try and resolving rural issues and rural challenges and do them better than a generalist company would with limited resources.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, but it's just that the quality of the stats is a comparison to other councils. It's not fair that many councils.
I acknowledge that.
Councillor Mackie.
It's to Marlon, I suppose. I know you guys represent the government, but given the thing that's making a lot of the water things unsustainable is the regulator for the water. Why is the government not talking about reining them in?
Look, I can sit here as someone who's sat in the water industry for 20 years and say, we did the best job we could in an unregulated environment. And I would commend anyone who's been in the water industry, who's served the public and keeping them healthier every single day, and I would pat them on the back. The reality is we are one of the only countries in the world that doesn't have regulation of water or economic quality. So for me, when you see the impacts of that, you get greater consistency across New Zealand as a result of that. And the variability, as someone who's now been involved in assessing all councils across New Zealand over the last 4 or 5 years, why some of the things are happening in New Zealand. So without naming councils, I just think there's huge variability that if there's some level of consistency through regulation will help resolve. Ultimately, it will come at a cost, but that's why it's not the regulator's job to try and figure out the best way to deliver the service. It's up to the decision makers to make sure that they're meeting the needs of those regulators.
Might be worthwhile adding that in terms of that consistency of approach in regulation, the regulator is also tasked with developing consistent standards, and there are significant advantages in that consistency and of developing solutions, acceptable solutions, and the work like that the regulator is also doing has financial benefits in terms of compliance.
That's a good point, Warren. I mean, the wastewater standards themselves, I estimate they'll save in the order of $5 billion for councils collectively across New Zealand over the next 5 years.
Further questions, team? Just want one more, Councillor Martin.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. It's probably directed to Marlon. Marlon, so obviously you've got quite a bit of expertise in the industry. Your main focus seems to be around scale savings via scale, by bigger is brighter. But is that when you approach that, are you approaching it with a one glove fits all scenario? Like you rattled off some big players there earlier, but everyone's in unique situations. When you're saying the scale benefits, so you're saying as a collective, as a CCO, or in the worst case scenario when a Crown observer comes in and he goes over the books with a fine tooth comb, he could possibly find those areas of savings too.
No, that's a great question. So while the legislation is drawn towards CCOs because of this requirement around higher levels of professionalism, the fact that the entities that are created are just about delivery, right? And it's not about the planning that's left with the councils to ensure the plans are made appropriate for each region. The delivery focus will be with the water service entity. There's thinking that having professional people with the skill sets to deliver that on behalf of shareholders will achieve better outcomes. I've personally seen it happen, but that's not specifically what I'm advocating for. What I am advocating for is some level of consistency. So, for example, best practice for operational expenditure on asset base is 2%. So whatever your asset values are, take a 2% number, and that should be your theoretical operational expenditure. Same as depreciation. It should be 2% of your assets because your assets typically have a 50-year life. Overheads should be between a third to 45% of your OPEX. Finance costs should be at 20% of your revenue. Debt should be at 20% of your assets. So there's these ratios that I'm sitting here saying, how you deliver them is up to you as a council, but there will be pressure to get to those ratios. And what I'm saying is I've seen it internationally where those entities that can't achieve the savings required to hit those targets find it difficult, end up compromising things that make it untenable when you start throwing in quality aspects to it. I'm just saying, as a mechanism, I've seen scale work in achieving some of those outcomes. So am I biased towards scale? Yes, because I've worked in big organisations, but that's not the be all and end all. If you can come up with innovative ways to achieve those parameters that are consistent across New Zealand, then by all means any model will work. But I just think it's a lot more challenging without, scale. And in your circumstance, you've got some willing neighbours who are prepared to have conversations, and I just think it'd be a shame to not have a further discussion about what that means for your council.
Thank you for that. But I suppose the most important part for us is the people that are at the other end of the line that turn the tap on is what they're getting at that end, and it's service, affordable service. Thank you.
Councillor McFamily.
Yeah, thank you. Warren, I'd like to ask another question. One that I've asked a few people and nobody's been able to give me an answer on, and that is if council, tomorrow we were to shift our water unit would start, say, from the start of August, we would require 40%, our UAGC would have to be the equivalent of about 40% of the rates take, whereas we've only got a limit of 30%. So that is going to affect our whole rating system if we remove the water from council. So has there been any work done by DAA or discussed about future rating systems and maybe increasing the UAGC limit?
Might be a bit on for Marlon.
No, what we've enabled through the legislation is the transition to, or the ability for the water entity to invoice or bill charge customers on a basis that's more realistic for the service. So everyone talks about user pays, right? So at the moment, a fixed charge doesn't give that level of consistency.
Sorry,
15 people in the household or one individual in the household. So we're focused more on that than the actual uniform annual general charge and its components and what can be split. All the legislation requires is this ring fencing, so there's clear visibility as to what the consumer, ratepayer, customer is being charged.
I'm not talking. Can I just come back? I'm not talking about the water services section. I'm talking about approximately 40% of our business, of our council business, is water. So therefore, we'd have a business which is 60% of the size. Now, a uniform annual general charge that we currently bill this year would need to be 40% of the remaining 60% rates bill. Otherwise, we're going to have to dramatically change our rates on the rest of the council business. Now, has there been any discussion on those impacts for the remainder of the council business?
So you're saying that you want to take the 40% out and you're left with 60. Is that what I'm hearing?
Our water business is the equivalent of about 40%. So we run a UAGC at 30%.
Could I possibly intervene here? It's putting the water guys in a position where it's actually Steve's answer what the remaining organisation would reconfigure. So,
but DIA, you're in charge of
water.
Of rating.
No, of water. Steve's in charge of the rating of the remaining district.
No, the rules for rating are run by the DIA.
Sorry, Bishop, but I know you've asked it before many times, Councillor, and it's clear from these two officers, high ups in DIA, that from their perspective, they're not dealing with that particular issue. The issue that you've raised has been raised through the process, through the project, through Southern Water Done Well. We agree with you. We agree that if you go down this pathway, it has to be a change around the UAGC. Our job is to put that issue to the people that are going to make the decisions. I'm just pointing out that you asked these two poor gentlemen here to answer whether they know anything, and I'm suggesting that they don't, because it's going to other parts or the questions are being asked in other ways. That's all.
Okay.
So we can connect to what the people who do know. I personally don't know. I mean, but I know Keith Miller would know the answer to this, for example, at DIA.
It's going to blow our whole rating apart.
Any further questions, team? Councillor Martin.
Then that's probably more directed to Steve, this question, Your Worship, then. So we've got to wait through that process. We've got to form a decision now, and then wait through that process to see what the result is of Councillor Mekatami's question, which we've been asking for repeatedly. So how can we form the decision now when the game's going to change later?
Well, through Your Worship, that aspect has never been part of the consideration of anybody making these decisions, because it's separate from and will need to be resolved. We've all said that it has to be resolved because it affects everybody. Right? There's not a single council that isn't affected by that matter. We've all understood that. We've made representation to that, and there's an expectation that these things get fixed. Remember, there's time in the sense of the plans need to be submitted, and even ourselves, if we were going down the CCO pathway, was 2 years away and things like that. So, all that are matters of implementation that need to be addressed. And that is a big one, which we absolutely agree with you and are very interested in and expect it to be addressed.
And also for me, it's symptomatic of what we're seeing all the way through. If we as a council were in charge of this process, we would have already addressed it. It's coming this way, guys, don't forget, and our time frame is 55 days from now. It's not as big, it doesn't weigh as heavily on my conscience as what is being passed through Parliament at the moment that will fundamentally change the figures in a couple of months' time. We've got till 2027 to readjust the criteria for the UAGC, because the UAGC is made up of varying components, and over the years we've put some in and we've put some out. We've just got a bit put some in and put some out, but it's not weighing too heavy on my mind. Councillor Catherwood.
Well, yeah, for you, I might not be weighing on yours, but so getting into that UAGC piece of it, we're actually here making a decision. This option one, it's all about water service delivery, totally understand, create scale. Can't argue against scale. Marlon, sweet as. But we as councillors, we're also here about the overall rates bill at the end of the day, to the impact to our actual ratepayer. So when we have the two bills, the Southern Water Done Well bill, and what remains and the mess that remains by creating 60% of what we operate now financially, and we lose 40% of our income, it definitely has an impact. So it actually is an important question, because in 33-34, on the modelling from Morrison and Lowe, you had in-house at 3211 and Southern Water Done Well at 2985. So I think it's actually a valid point on McTammany. I think we actually should really have that modelling to make the decision today, because there is an effect. I've got no problems of making my decision about delivering water today, the best ways to deliver water for money for value. But we don't just deliver water. We are a council. There are other things that we have to deliver to our constituents. So, yeah, it does weigh on my mind. I think it is quite important. It's a valid point.
It's a valid point for 2027. We've got 55 days.
Your Worship, I can answer that. There are two separate things. You quoted some figures, Councillor, about the financial impacts of each option, for example. Those figures have nothing and no relevance to the question around what happens to the UAGC 40% issue that Councillor McTammany has said, right? So the issue with that is just the legal requirement that says you can't go more than 30% of UAGC for fixed charges. That's what we're talking about in terms of breaching. That's what would happen if nothing changes and we move Three Waters out to another organisation. That's the issue. That's not an issue of financial assessment against one option from the other. That's just a technical legal issue around what the cap says that we have to do. And what we're saying is, yes, it absolutely has to change. The legislation needs to change to reflect it. The government has demonstrated on many occasions the ability to make changes to legislation when there is something that needs to be changed. And that is something that is a pretty simple issue that absolutely has to be addressed, but can be addressed. It's just a technical cap issue that the legislation has in relation to fixed charges, but it has no bearing or relationship to what you were describing in terms of assessing two financial options.
Further questions, please? Just check one last time. No further questions. Can I say, sobering analysis, thanks DIA. I want to thank you for your assistance today, but can I ask Stu, Andrew, or Marlon, can all four of you just stay on in case during deliberations and discussions we have to come back for clarification? Is that okay? So once again, thanks to all of you. Just before we move into deliberation, I want to make a few acknowledgements given the significance of today's decision. I want to firstly acknowledge the support and effort that Steve and his team have given us to ensure that we've had the information and we have at our fingertips all the time the assistance and the support that we've needed to ensure that we're prepared for today. I also want to thank DIA. Thanks Warren and Marlon, but it's more than you. I go back, this is a 9-year process for us. And I go back to all those times when you, along with Te Mata Aroa, came down to Clutha and you gave us that special support. I want to acknowledge not only today's assistance, but what you've given unwaveringly to this district over the last 9 years, the meetings you've attended, the time that you've given. It's also a good time to acknowledge the rocks that we have reaffirmed around us, which is our water scheme teams. To Roger Cotton and to all the chairs and to the committees, they've been there and had to take on a lot of the information and the responsibility we have. And you've been a solid team that have always been there for us to fall back on. I also, councillors, want to once again thank you for the professionalism, for the way you've gone about this task, for the due diligence that you've put in. It hasn't been easy the last few months. For many councils, it would have been a test that they might not have been able to handle. I thank you that today you come and you are prepared. For me, this has been a 9-year journey. It spanned 3 election cycles. Consequently, today I sit here with a burden of 19,000 people and the expectation that I'll stand here today with the values and principles that I align to, and I will fulfil my obligation, as I'm sure each and every one of you will, to do what is the right thing by the Clutha district. That is the only thing that we're here for today, unwaveringly. I would now like to, so just so you know what we're going to do, I'm going to start with Michelle. We're going to go around the room. Everyone has the opportunity to have their say, get their input. It is then my attention when it comes back to me and I have my say, that after consideration of what you say here, I will make a recommendation. And on that, we'll have the discussion and the debate shall follow. But I'd like to firstly go to welcome Michelle. Thank you for, I hope it's not too hot and humid and everything else that Perth is. Once again, my apologies for the wake-up call this morning to make sure that you were going to be on computer. But Michelle, thank you. Love to hear your thoughts.
Well, more than advice, but not more than to you. Full water. Okay. Coated solar, coal line, aluminium, and don't forget wastewater. We've heard this around our table for about nearly 3 years. Been a lot of homework to put in your head around. We ploughed through so much paperwork. And to timing, okay? Electoral decisions, no. Sitting on the fence, no, not today, guys. We've got a big future to look at, big picture decisions. We have multiple rural schemes that are important. They are a large part of our ratepayer base. And economic times today is never going to help our ratepayers. No option is great without central government helping. Government can't ignore us. All of our people around New Zealand, they cannot ignore us. Economically, a CO will make the future more viable. Risk factors are high. To meet people's future standards and expectations, we need to join. At this stage, my option is 1. The best we can put forward, whether it is accepted, we will see. Our control as a council is putting forward a good water service delivery plan. That's all I have to say, guys.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. I'll now move on to Councillor Phelps.
Thank you, Bishop. I just want to say this will be one of the hardest decisions I've had to make in my 2 terms here. It is hard to make such an important decision for the district ratepayers when only approximately 3% submitted recently. We all have read hours of reports on this changing target issue. We've recently heard directly from the Minister, and his view was made clear. And I don't want to see a commissioner placed here and we have no control at all. I do have concerns of further councils pull out if the savings aren't there, and I do not see a single CCO being advantageous cost-wise to us. I've felt that all the way through the process, the options placed on us were not workable or affordable. I know the decision will not please some of the ratepayers, but we have need to look to the future to better infrastructure and cost savings for the ratepayer long term, as this is a long-term project. We've been voted in to make the best decision we have been sent to us at the time. And I know there's been a lot of opposition and threats made out there for our upcoming election, but that aside, at this point I'm going to be voting for option one. I believe the in-house option is still going to cost the ratepayer. The status quo, as we've heard, is not an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Founts. Councillor McTamaney.
Yeah, I've been wavering a long time on this. A few things, mainly pretty peeved off with the government's whole approach to this project. It was alluded to by the Mayor before. Again, Tama Arawai busy working on the affordable services program as to what may be available to us in the future. We've got the MPS on fresh water still being worked on to be resolved. And then again, we've talked about, I just brought up the question about future rating. That should have been there before this process started. The government's basically got it asked about face. This whole process should have started after those things were resolved, but it hasn't, and we've been told, and the minister's making those threats. As a council, I'm not particularly worried what happens to us, but I am, I do have sympathy for all the staff involved with water. The hand is forced. The other day with Waitaki, when we first started on this process, there were multiple councils potentially involved. Each time one of those has dropped off, then it's been clear that we've lost some of those benefits of scale, and that happened again the other day when Waitaki went out. Waitaki were probably, on the looks of it, the stronger of the four councils in this group as far as their water setup. So it was quite a shame for them to go. I had been concerned the whole time that we really haven't, there should have been that due diligence done on what happens to our council if the water unit goes. That is a big body of work. And while we've got to 2027 to work it out, it's going to be pretty complicated because we have a duty to, with the water charges and the rates, we've got to try and do our very best to make sure that they're not going to be greater than what they might have been. So there's going to have to be some significant, possibly some significant changes to the future functions of the council to make sure that's affordable. I'm still getting there. So I'll close out there.
Thank you, Councillor McTamaney. Councillor Finch.
Right, I have never put so much thought into any other issue we've had over the last 21 years. And I have lost sleep. I've listened, I've debated, I've discussed this huge issue for a long time, like everybody else here. Was really interested in Waitaki's debate. We've asked for our ratepayers' input and ideas over many past issues, but none were as involved or important or have the potential for a long-term impact as the Four Waters issue that we've got at the moment. And to say I was disappointed by the very, very low submissions, 393 out of 19,000, that was really gutting to me. And this is the most important decisions council will make for many years to come, and that's an understatement. I've had feedback saying, why would we bother, as you do not listen and you don't care what the ratepayers want, you just decide your own way, how to vote, and don't consider the ratepayers. I want to say that's not right. We all do. Otherwise, why are we here? We're here for the ratepayers. I want input from the ratepayers and listen to their reasons, concerns. And I really have, the same as everybody else, thought long and hard over the 4 waters issues. We've read and read and read, as everyone knows. I want what's best for our ratepayers. I'm really concerned, though, with some of the lack of detail that's still to come, that we don't have all the information that we need. I understand the reasons why, but that makes this decision quite hard. I'm really concerned that we lost Waitaki, but the water we have and make this decisions isn't just for 5 years, it's for 40 years plus. It affects so many people. So also hearing today DIA's side makes it a lot clearer. Hearing Waitaki with their, can we have the 2 years and stuff, that was why I asked that question. Is that a possibility? Because that's the way I was definitely going to go if there was any hope that we could hold a little bit and then be able to do it. But hearing about all the commissioners and the other specialists, that made it a lot clearer to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Finch. Councillor McCrosty.
Bit like everybody, this has been forefront and a hell of a lot of reading, etc. One thing I will do is I'll thank the staff for everything they've done. It kept us informed. Waitaki leaving has thrown a big hole in things. We were told by DIA we basically needed 50,000 connections to start with. Even with Waitaki, we were at 38. That's dropped substantially. We had a piece in the paper the other day saying about the state of our water. Steve came back to us with an email, and it's 100% correct. Greenfield coming online is going to tidy up 3 to 4 water schemes plus a town. We've got Waka back on side. We've got KP, Clutha, Sterling's been fixed. Milton's okay. We've got a couple of water schemes still on boiled water notices. Page 166 of the capital program. You know, we're down from 116.3 million to 37.1. I've never had to make a decision like this. And the truth of the matter is, yes, I have listened to, it might only be 300 submissions, but there was only 600 for our entire LTP. And I think with splitting it to 2 prices, etc., I'll actually be going for option 3.
Thank you, Councillor McCrosty. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this is why this process is so great, because we actually get to sit here and listen to this opinion. That's very thought-provoking. I too have written stuff down because I didn't want to come up here and stutter and stammer today. And I have, just to everybody around the table, staff and everything, I have really appreciated what has been done today. And my wife, who is my support crew sitting behind me today, will verify that I have spent hours reading it. Not once, not twice, probably 3 times, going through it, pouring through it. It's just, it is the toughest decision we have made for a long time. So I've got some bullet points. I've had to change them a wee bit today. So it is disappointing that the Waitaki District Council have voted not to be part of the 4-council CCO. That is their choice, however, and yes, it does change the landscape for us. However, for me, and based on what I'm hearing today too, I think we need to pursue an amended 3-council and have a look at what a 3-council CCO looks like. Yes, the issue financial benefits are going to change, but the principles and the reasoning don't. We all know what the benefits are: better buying power, greater borrowing, ownership retained through shareholding, more capacity and capability, long-term savings, standardisation opportunities. It is the cheapest option for the ratepayer. And ability to meet, this is the important one, regulation and be compliant. I feel we need to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. My feelings are that we should agree in principle to run with a 3-council CCO, subject to Morrison Lowe crunching the numbers and then being satisfactory and agreeable for us to proceed. And that's what's written down here, and I'm really pleased to see that today. Yes, this will be an unpopular decision for some ratepayers, but we are elected representatives that have been voted in to do the research and make the best decisions. I have read many pages of information, as I stated at the start, and supporting reports several times, and every time I read them, there is one option that jumps out as better than the rest. Not the holy grail, but a step forward to keeping the rates as cheap as possible. Like everybody else, the devil will be in the detail and the unknowns. It has been explained we probably can't establish until we find a workable and acceptable way forward. The DIA and ministers have advocated for a joint CCO as the most sustainable option, and our consultation with everybody, Morrison Lowe and everybody else, supports this too. So for me, a 3-council CCO still allows for some opportunities, and that is early engagement, and that does give us an advantage to shape what the statement of intent looks like and make it fit our circumstances. It allows us to proceed and have a decent look at the stranded overheads once we've made these decisions. We can have a look at what the 4 waters part looks like properly, and here's the important bit too, have the WSDP in place by the 3rd of September. And just shut up, I'll just say, to change is difficult, not to change is fatal.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Graham.
Oh, yeah, right. I'd sort of initially like to thank the government for their horror time frame and even their even more horror timing right before an election. Mate. Anyway, I'm not, I've listened through to the advantages, the disadvantages, the losing the control, the do this and the do that, and what DIA is going to do and what Tamara ROI is going to do, and all this. In the meantime, there's the incessant, non-stop distraction between the mayor and the submitters, and I've listened to the submitters, and I'm not a financial whiz, so I listen to these guys. I listen to everybody. Was saying, like the DIA and Morrison Lowe and all that sort of stuff, and the staff and fellow councillors. That's what I'll make my decisions on. So I really think this issue isn't solely about water. It's about integrity. It's about the integrity of the information we get from Morrison Lowe. It's about the integrity of our DIA going to back up what they say they do. It's the integrity of the advice we get from staff. But most of all, it's going to come down to the integrity of the councillors and to do the right thing, the best thing for the ratepayers. Now, I've always had this mantra, I suppose, that I'd rather get chucked out in an election doing the right thing than be the most popular guy on the block by making the wrong decision. So we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Your Worship. Firstly, acknowledge all the work done by staff and the people on Zoom. Thank you very much for your time and effort. Yeah, there's a huge amount taken and a huge amount's been read, and all the work's been done over years. that's all swimming around up the top here, and I probably tried to wind it back, you wish, probably three principles for me as I represent everyone. I want the best thing for my beloved rural water schemes, and I think amalgamation in some form is imminent. Whether we are drivers or whether we are passengers, that is imminent. The hour that some of us spent in this room not so long ago with the Minister Watts online was probably the best hour I've ever spent in this room. He was very, very clear that day and mentioned the word financial sustainability repeatedly. It was very clear to me that we put the best option up once and we do it first. We see by DIA telling us in their reports here that option one is the only viable option. We've heard on that same Zoom call that day, we had Bill Bayfield, the past ROI chair, and we had Brad Olsen from Infometrics. We've heard from Roger Cotton. Every Morrison Low report I've read, I think, has option one as the best option. We've got a number of us sitting around this table have been to workshops, have been to meetings, have read agendas, have read endless reports. So we're here today to make the decision. Option three is repeatedly the highest cost option and the most risky. But I'll go back to my beloved rural water schemes, and I want the best thing for them. And it's plain to me that at some point, amalgamation will happen. Whether that is forced on us or whether we choose to drive that process is up to us today. For my rural water schemes, if we choose option one, we are there at the inception of this thing, and we are there when the founding document is written, and we will get the best thing for them by doing that. Leaving us to the mercy of a Crown facilitator, Crown specialist, whoever walks through that door, leaving us, our rural water schemes, to the mercy of them, that's not happening with me. I will be option one.
Thank you, Councillor Herbert. Councillor Mackie.
Yeah, well, this has been an interesting, hard decision for me. And I want to thank the staff again for all the work they've done in printing. I really resent the government coming down and threatening with a big stick. I really resent that. I just want them to know that I represent the ratepayers, and I resent that. I've been thinking about long and hard about the decision we are supposed to make today. But here's my take on it and the concerns I have. There has been no work done on what will happen to the Clutha District Council when it loses 43% of its rate income. There has been no work done on the sunken costs, as they didn't think it was important to do until after the vote. I feel this stinks of negligence. I feel it's important that without knowing these costs, we can't vote for the joint CCO. It's like putting the roof on before you've completed the foundation. So if there are costs the council can't discharge itself of to do with the three waters, how will the rates be? How will it be rated? Capital value, UAGC, or both? This is all unknown, and we're expected to vote for this. $13.8 million total for the CO setup. Clutha's share is $4.6 million, and you haven't fixed a pipe yet. Over the last few years, we have spent tens of millions of dollars on three waters. For the size of our district, the government should be proud of us, not bullying us. All these unknowns are warning bells to me. The fact that we don't know until after the vote what the iwi role will be is concerning, considering we are all ratepayers in South Otago. When I look at the three waters, I felt then, when we took over the three waters, I felt it was a good decision. It should have happened years ago. Perhaps there wouldn't have been years of underspending going on at water assets. Ring fencing money rated for the three water asset is a fantastic idea again. This should have been happening years ago. The government has asked us to look at options. We've done that. I believe over the last 6 years, people are over the government overreach through LGNZ an organisation being funded by the ratepayer used to push government ideologies and agendas on us, just like the government is now. If you look at the cost savings, there's not that much difference, because the unknown, the sunken costs are going to eat that up over time. They tell us we will be able to borrow more money. It all has to be paid back. Government and council debt is killing the country and is out of control. I totally disagree with the rationale of borrowing on behalf of the children not even born into our district yet. Governments and mayors come and go. In the end, they are accountable for nothing. They just get voted out. If you haven't gauged by now, I will not be supporting option 1. I will be voting 3 to do it in-house like we are now. But I expect us to do better for our ratepayer and not be negligent. Please remember, 75% of the submissions were against option 1. And that's all of it. So
Thank you, Councillor Mackie. Councillor Lederman.
Well, firstly, thank you to staff for all the work that you have done in this regard, because actually it's been huge and we do appreciate it. I've spent endless hours attending meetings, reading and gaining an understanding of the option in regards to our future water delivery. Sometimes the recommendations, decisions we make around this table are challenging and not always agreed by all ratepayers. I make my decision today based on the research that I have undertaken and what I believe is the best option for the Clutha District ratepayers in the future. We have been advised by central government that the management of water as we know it at present is not an option going forward. We have discussed the options available and I believe that an in-house business unit is not an option for this council. We would not be financially sustainable under that option. I mean, we only had to look at that lovely report that we all received last week from Tamatahara to see what a mess we're in, really. I do take on board some of the comments that Councillor Makatimi has said around future costs within council. And I do think, I mean, that's something we need to be working through, but I believe we've got time and the staff will do that. It's kind of been one step at a time to get to where we are now. Rural water schemes throughout the process have been consulted and have submitted in favour of option 1. With option 1, we can have some control over our rural water schemes, our fourth water. If we are directed by DIA, we will have no control over what happens to our rural water schemes. And to me, that's one of the most important, been one of the most driving for me making my decision. I've met here with the rural water scheme chairs on many occasions and have enjoyed that meeting, but I think we've been lucky in the effort that council staff and everything put into the rural water schemes. They are important because they are different in that they not only do the rural water, they're doing the urban water as well, and we need to get it right for them in particular. I think that's a challenge we have. While it would have been great to have 4 councils in the CCO, at present this is not an option, but the door would still be open should other councils wish to join our CCO. I certainly support us working with Gore and Central Otago. After all, they are our neighbours. We do have similarities. This is an intergenerational decision that we are making today. We only had 3% of our community submit, and I considered their submissions along with all of the other material that has been available to all councillors. I will be voting for option 1, a joint CCO with Central Otago, Gore and Clutha, with the further analysis being provided by Morrison Lowe when I make my decision.
Thank you, Councillor Lederman. Councillor Martin.
Your Worship, fellow councillors, yes, it's been an arduous journey, and I too would like to thank the council staff and the CEs and also the submitters, because they're the people that help steer the ship as well. And also I'd like to thank the people on the street that didn't submit.
but they stopped to have time to have that conversation, and you talk to them and acknowledge it. Yeah, it's a very peculiar sort of a situation, I believe, when it's been forced upon you, because nobody likes anything being forced on you. And what also I didn't really enjoy reading ADT yesterday was the finance minister who complained about wasteful spending, comparing local politicians, which is all of us, as children in a candy store. That is poor. Very, very poor coming from the finance minister, which to me sets the tone of what we've been enduring. It's been driven from the top. If you go back to, maybe if the minister went back and read the Local Government Act, it states in there the purpose of local government is to enable democratic local decision-making and action by and on behalf of our communities. Our communities put us in this room, not the finance minister, not the DIA. It was our choice to run, and it was our community's choice to put us in this position. My experience is I don't give up on people, I back people. So in closing, I'd like to say, and sorry, because everything's been pretty much said, but what I would like to say is if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got. So you back people, and I'm prepared to back this organisation, that we can do it better. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Valwelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, I've got very little to say at the moment. I'll probably save my powder until the debate itself. But, just acknowledge again that staff, the work that's gone in from staff. I'll also acknowledge my fellow councillors here for all the time they've put into it, and I will acknowledge submitters as well. So I think that at the moment, the decision I'm making will be the one that I believe gives us the greatest ability to make our to keep our relative autonomy in the future. So,
Thank you, Councillor Valwelly. Councillor Cathwood.
just priming here.
Right. Well, it's over 5 years. It's just been over 5 years since we've been sitting around this table and went through the big Three Waters journey. And we had the big conglomerate entity team that's looking pretty exciting. The price harmonisation across the whole of the South Island was looking pretty fantastic. Unfortunately, that particular government wrapped co-governance around it and ruined it to the public messaging. But anyway, a lot of unknowns as a councillor to be sitting around here today. We're making a decision on it with not a full amount of information. You're taking a lot of risk for the option that you take today. Either way, one or three, however you vote today, you got to recognise you're taking risks. There's so many unknowns. There's unknowns from government. Purpose of local government, that's being questioned. Rates capping is getting questioned. Regional councils getting questions. I mean, there's so many moving parts, and irrespective of which way you vote today, I commend everyone. I mean, we've all been in the game. I commend Brian. Brian's had a heck of a last 5 years that I've seen him around this table and to our staff. We've spent over $100 million in this district. We've gone from zero debt to over $100 million we've spent on our three waters, trying to comply with the regulator and the legislation. It's a heck of a bill to pay, but we've never flinched, and I'm quite proud of that as a councillor. So moving along, getting down to where we are with our story, I understand the scale provides a pathway to greater opportunity, levels of efficiencies and benefits. Leveraging scale brings down costs. Totally agree with that statement. The DIA 3-8 report is telling us time and time again it's necessary. It's our only option likely. So that really pulls your socks up and gets your heads in the game. And why are they saying this to me? Why are they saying it to me? Page 32, infometrics, using the words of collaboration,
boost capability, long-term assets paid over long-term funding. Water reform is essential. CCO offers scale. So you look at these, and these are professionals that we've engaged with and we've paid for as a group. Very unfortunate to lose 25% of our group the other day. But 38, just remember page 38, it talks a little bit about, when you look at page 38, you look at the staff comments, district pricing. So when I go now down to our district pricing, and I grab the figures from Morrison Lowe, I've enjoyed the relationship with Morrison Lowe, totally trusted their professionalism through the first lot of Three Waters and the current work we've been doing. So Stu and the guys doing a great job. But the figures there in-house on 27-28, 3386, and you had Southern Waters done well with their modelling, the way they do their system, 3195. I'll come back to where the point I'm making about that. So that then gets ring-fenced as your district pricing. So when it goes into the CCO, harmonisation is not guaranteed, only if agreed. So all the debt of the Cleveland District Council for those assets gets pushed over into that CCO. All the debt gets picked up and pushed into that balance sheet, remember? So I'll be picking the price on that day that Southern Water done as well. Their bill will actually reflect in our scenario of 3386. I could be wrong, but that's, I'm thinking with my head. Sometimes I think with my heart, sometimes I think with what my gut's telling me. I'd like to acknowledge to the general public, the 78.4% who went for option 3. I'd just like to say to the public, well, good on you. It wasn't a huge amount of submissions. It's an overwhelming support for option 3. It'd be a real simple decision to make today, if only you used your heart. It's telling you to go for option 3. But you've got to use your head, and you've got to use your heart, and you've got to probably use your guts. So it's a little bit on the consultation. And I hope that it's a real shame that the public don't realise how big this topic actually is and how much extra pressure it puts on this council, especially the costs of it. Further on, I just see I get down to page 41, and this is where I keep getting back to, and it's the stranded overheads for each council would be completed as part of the transition planning. Now, it's that stranded overhead that I keep coming back to in my head as a representative council. We know what the figure is on the transition day. We know what the figure is of the model, right? We don't know what the figure of the stranded asset is. I can't use my head because I don't have the figures. We don't have the information. I'm going to have to use my head, and then I have to use my gut. My gut feeling is there's actually no cost saving to the actual ratepayer. When I have two bills, and I have a Southern Waters bill come in my mailbox, and I have my Cleveland District Council bill arrive, and I open the two up, I combine them together. I don't see a saving. I can't see the saving. The true savings would be, because I totally agree with option 1, the philosophy of option 1. So the actual way to actually get the true savings is probably to have Marlon from the DIA, is to create South Island Water, put all 21 South Island councils in together, and get some true scale. And that's probably where it actually is. So to go in with 2 other small councils, sign us away for, you say sustainable, financially sustainable, is a water bill of $3,000 financially sustainable with your rates bill on the side of it? Both options aren't sustainable. So today I'm actually going to go with option 3 and keep it in the house. I would actually welcome the Crown Facilitator. I would not like to see us in a position of a Crown Observer, but I would happily want to go and have a Crown Facilitator assist us. And if that ends up bringing smaller councils around us that may even end up in these unsustainable situations, we might actually end up in a situation where we end up with 6 councils actually getting forced into a situation of collaboration and create bigger benefits. Going with 2 more councils, that's not scale, and the savings are not great enough for the risk. We'll be going with option 3 today. That's how I feel.
Thank you, Councillor Catherwood. For my part, firstly, thank you everyone for the consideration you're given and the input to turning the cogs in my head. That's what the process is. All the way through though, I just had this number ticking away in my head, 55 days. 55 days. If council wasn't at the bottom of the food chain and we had some control over this, there's no way that it'll be 55 days until there is the legal imperative that we deliver a viable water plan. It was said to me when I was trying, God, I've wrestled with this one like I've wrestled never before. But when I asked a wise person where we're at with it, and he said, today, when you come in here with a clear head, not an empty head, and you take into consideration everything over the last 9 years. For the record, I'll say now, I prefer no option. None provide the salvation or relief that I was hoping for the district I love. Quite obviously, just the previous speaker. No, there is no El Dorado here. We're picking the best of some bad options. I've not only been frustrated, I have been sickened by the structure and the obscene timeframes that we've been shackled to. These are the cards that we've been dealt, and it is now our duty to do the best we can. There are decisions that we have to make today. And there are some hard decisions that are going to have to be made by the next council. Decisions around the UAGC, decisions around the stranded overheads, decisions that the council will make at the right time and the right place. But there's decisions here today so that we produce a viable water plan in 55 days' time. And I've laboured over this, as I'm sure you all have, what to do. I want to acknowledge the sentiments of the submitters. I take on board your pertinent points. We all have concerns similar to you. It worries the hell out of me, the loss of voice and the loss of control. There is that uncertainty everywhere we go. Wouldn't it be nice if we knew it, but 3 waters, uncertain and ever-changing, and continually the unknown. I take the sentiment of the submitters, and I appreciate your concerns, valid as they are when considering the information that you had available to you. One thing that has weighed heavily on my mind was that at every opportunity, I asked submitters a critical question. What happens in 2027 when we hit our debt limit? What about in 2031 when we breach the debt limit for a sustained period? Not once have I had the answer that I was hoping for. Not once has a submitter given me, what do we do when we breach our debt ceiling? What do we do when we're insolvent? You can do that when you're a submitter on the information that you have. This is just the information I've collected over the last 3 weeks that you would have had to do. It's unfair to think that the labyrinth of issues and the complexity and the information that we had, that the poor submitters would be able to actually come to the same conclusion as us. They can avoid the fact that what do you do in 2027 and in 31? We cannot. It is behoveth on us that we come up with the best option possible. I want to, like Councillor Martin, thank the throngs of people. I have never since my first election as mayor have I had so many locals come up to me and say, tell you what, good on you, keep going. It's not easy, but actually, we put our faith in you that on the hard decisions, you go away and make the decision. You're the one with the information. You as councillors are the ones with the information. I've also, in the last 9 years, been given not just hundreds, but thousands of people's advice. People that have had the information, and when I went through it, I started thinking, where are we with this one? The Prime Minister's given me advice. He had all the information. I sat in a room a few weeks ago with the Minister, Minister Watts. Categorically, he knew what direction we should take when he had all the information. I've listened to the team from DIA, you know, there's been Warren and Marlon and Michael and Hamiora and the team. And they've had all the information. And not once have they deviated from giving the one bit of advice. We've had our regulators come out of Arawa with Alan Pragnell on his team. Now Alan's had a big input and come down here. There's only one direction his voice has been. Stu from Morrison Loan, Andrew, guys in the know like that. Was that 26-year-old or was he 28? What was his name? Brad Olsen, probably the preeminent economist in New Zealand. He had most of the information. He only had one option that he could see. I think to my colleagues, people that have been immersed and drowning in three waters for 9 years like myself, to Sam Broughton, to that strong team of support that we get from LGNZ, hundreds and hundreds, no, thousands of people, armed with the information, and consistently, each and every one of them's given me the same advice. There's a reason for that. I would like, as I've said, to not have to take any option, because there's no option that offers the true Eldorado. But we have to take an option, and it has to be the option that gives this district the best chance. There is only one option that our CEO has indicated today he'll sign off on. The others he is very nervous around. I don't want to put the words in, so Steve, I can't. The essence of what you were saying is, you want to place our CEO in a position of having to sign off what he's not comfortable with. I know he's an honourable man and he won't do it. So I'll take that as advice from the CEO. But most of all, we're here today to do the right thing by the people we're proud to serve. We have to do what is the best out of a very poor selection, the best for our district, the district we love. There is no other option. It's option one. Consequently, I would like to recommend, but I will go through because I've got two. Where are my recommendations? Thank you. I'm going to roll through in one because firstly, I want to move recommendation one that we received the report. That's pretty easy, but in conjunction with that, I would also like to move recommendation 2A. You'll see 2A there. I presume everyone's quite familiar with it, which is that we push for option one with the prerequisite that we agree with the figures that come to us in that early part of August. We're not fools. We're not going to jump into something without first taking the knowledge that is to hand. And in fairness to Andrew and Stu, they need a couple of weeks to get that together. I have faith in them. And if it turns out that it isn't, well, we don't ratify it. But as it is today, I move number one and number 2A. I'm looking for a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Herbert. Matters now open for discussion. Can I just say that, you know how I usually run a bit of a loose outfit? We'll probably have to tighten it up a bit today. So I will give latitude to the conversation so that it can develop. I will allow one speed. I go right round. So first time callers. Usually you do that. Ah, yeah, well, yeah, Steve's saying let's just get one out the way. Is it okay, John, if I just vote on option one that we would do? So John and I have moved and seconded option one. Can I please have all those in favour? Recommendation, just a recommendation one, just to move it out the way. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against. Now, fair enough, just so that it entirely focuses on option 2A. John, you're still happy with the seconding? Thank you. So that you know the discussion, we go for first time flyers. once we've exhausted first time flyers, you're going to have one more go at another statement. There is the opportunity for questions to all and sundry. We can go back to the team online. Are there any questions before we open deliberate? Well, before the discussion part, Councillor Finn.
I'd just like to know if it comes back and the funding model isn't what we like, basically, and we decide not to go with that, then what is the then procedure from there on?
That would default us back to the in-house.
No, not necessarily, Your Worship. The issue is that you 2A puts us in the direction of doing the homework and the work to submit the plan. We don't have time to do too much. The plan has to be submitted basically in August.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue will be if I can't certify it, or it can't be made sustainable, just as we already know option 3, similarly, we would just be in that position. So that there's no out on that, right? There's no out. There's no other options associated with that. It's the same situation as if you did option 3 and I didn't certify it and it wasn't sustainable. Exactly the same position.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions, Tim? If not, matters open for discussion. Remember, you get your first time flyer. We exhaust all first timers. We go back for one more second time flyer and then we vote. No one wants to speak. Excellent. Right, we'll go to the Councillor Volwheeler.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Finally, we're going to hear from Councillor Volwheeler.
Righto. Look, why are we doing this? Well, quite simply because we're obliged to make a decision today. Government's told us that we're on a short timeline. It's nowhere near ideal. The flaws in the system have been pointed out. I don't need to do this. But the main reason that I'm going to make my decision today is quite simply because of the cost of water services, and they're rapidly becoming unaffordable for our communities. This has been borne out by last year's LTP and more recently by this year's annual plan. So if this was solely to meet the desire of local government for a larger centralised agency, then I would stick with local. However, it's the affordability of water services to our communities that concerns me. And this is the major, probably the sole consideration that influences my decision making in this process. And just looking at what our domestic urban consumers paid last year, connected to all 3 waters, they paid $1,293. This current year, 2025-26 year, they will pay $2,000. Last year they paid $1,293. This year they will pay $2,035. And next year, the long-term plan projects $2,626. Now, the Morrison Low figures are even higher than that. So analysis, we've listened to Morrison Low, Department of Internal Affairs, and the analysis clearly shows out that cost savings are achievable, which will be passed on to our water services customer. Now, there's about $230 cost saving. I think it's in the year 27-28. I haven't brought that back up. But that is approximately on a $2,500 rate bill. It's approximately 7 or 8% rate. If I can reduce rates by 7 or 8% in one go, I would gladly do that. Now, there are a lot of issues raised in the consultation process. The first one I'll address is the lack of control that council will have. At the moment, council has very limited control of 3 waters anyway. The standards are set by Te Mata Arawai, and we have to meet those, and we make the news if we don't meet them. They produce reports which are publicly available, and they come and chastise us, basically. And for sewage disposal, we have to meet our consent conditions, which are set by the Regional Council. So there's next to no local input into these standards. As well, we'll have the Commerce Commission breathing down our neck from now on, whether we're an in-house business unit or a CCO. And the Commerce Commission will have the ability to set charges and to require investment, no matter which organisation we are. So if water is delivered to a consumer, we have to meet those standards. It has to be delivered in sufficient volume. We don't have a choice in that. Somebody is connected to our reticulation network. Basically, we can't even cut them off if they don't pay their bills at the moment. We can reduce the amount they get, so they still have a hygiene, meet health standards. The other issues that was raised was lack of accountability and transparency, and they're related. So if anything, I think there's going to actually be more accountability under a CCO, a joint CCO, because both Te Mata Arawai and the Commerce Commission will be paying very close attention to performance of the unit that is delivering water services. The organisation is required to provide annual reports to its customers and participating councillors if it's a CCO as well. And the Commerce Commission will publish summary and analyses of information. So there will be a lot of information available to the public out there to judge the performance of an organisation, whether it's a CCO or an in-house business unit. Got enough paper here, thanks, Councillor. So, with the joint CCO of 4 or 3 councils, as we are at the moment, there are bottom lines which are a must for any agreement which we would agree to, which have to be met for me to endorse them when we come to making a final decision in August, later, in 50 odd days' time. So, for a start, shareholding, it's based on this equal shareholding per council. So that would, should any other entities wish to join the CCO, they would have to abide by that as well. There's no dividend payable. The water services entity is not there to make a profit. Harmonisation is off the table at the moment. Costs are ring-fenced to each council or council area. There will be a shareholder representative group appointed by councils to manage the appointments process to the governing body. The mixed use schemes, the rural water schemes, they have to be recognised as fourth water, and they still have to have the ability to make input into the decisions that affect them. So finally, the reason I'm going for, some of those are the reasons why I am going for a joint CCO. I believe there are advantages to be gained through a larger entity delivering water services to our communities. There are matters that have to be worked through with regard to the sunk costs that are still hanging over councils. That's why councillors are elected, to address matters like that. So in short, I'd rather be a coalition of the willing than dragged into something, forced into something that we have no say in the development of. For instance, if we were obliged to go with Dunedin, how well would that sit? They would not take much notice of us all. So in summary, I do support the regional CCO model, as I believe it will provide the most efficient delivery of water services at the most affordable cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Hold on, any further statements, questions? Yeah, no, any further statements? Deliberation. Councillor Catherwood.
Oh, I'm just going to have one last say then.
That's what it's all about.
Isn't it? You know, scale provides a pathway to greater opportunity. Option one, scale, the advantages of the scale is not there. It's not big enough. It's not big enough. I pray, I hope it looks like we know that it's going to go to option one around this table. I pray that others are forced into it and we can actually achieve some scale. I'll put a prediction with Stu on his figures when he comes back to us from his Morrison and Lowe that Southern Water's done well in his modelling, will come up at $3,192 in the 33-34 in the CDC's 3211, so a saving of $9. That's where I'd probably put it. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious around this table where we're heading, but it's not true scale. We need reform. 3 waters. We know that we need it. By passing it off into a small entity off the side, just so that you can now go and borrow 500% of your income, it's not true scale. So, well done.
Thank you, Councillor Catherwood. Councillor Brown. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, there's been comment about the lack of information and all that sort of stuff, but as I said before, you depend on the integrity of the people that are giving you information, and you don't know what you don't know. At some stage, you've got to take that leap of faith. And bottom line is what is the cheapest option for the ratepayer? It's the best quality water at the cheapest rate. And hey, like, as I say, have faith.
Councillor Whittam.
I kind of go back to 10th of July when we met with Minister Watts and his comments on financial sustainability. Status quo is not financially sustainable. There needs to be an enduring model. And then we had Bill Bayfield say, business as usual is not going to cut it in the future. And we've had the Morrison Lowe, we've listened to all the things. Would it not be more beneficial to be in control of our own destiny? If the figures for Morrison Lowe stack up for a joint CCO, obviously we've still got to wait for those figures, but if they stack up, when we know we're basically in the ship anyway on our own, why would we not go with option one? I mean, that's probably not a nice way to say it, but actually, if we look at the report that we all received last week, we're not in great shape, and our debt limit's high now, and there's still a lot more work to do. So, and as Bill Bayfield said, business as usual, it's not going to cut it for the future.
Is that the hand, Councillor Mann?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, there's been a lot of direction directed towards option one from the government. But it's repeating itself. The last government, the former government, did exactly the same thing. They nearly had it across the line. And why they're not there now is because the current government said, no, we'll campaign against Three Waters, and they've just rebranded it. Local Water Done Well. So in another 6 months' time, and they all start campaigning, is this project here that we've all invested time, hours and money in, going to be flushed down the shitter too.
You better hold the language. I've let a few go, but there's a general warning. Jockey, you finished? Councillor McAtamney.
Yeah, I didn't say before what I'm going to do, but I am going to reluctantly vote for option one. Yeah, I already had a good crack before at the government, but again, as Jock alluded to, I mean, the whole process has been a bit of a charade. Ultimately, we're going to get steered down this direction anyway. It was very disappointing at the last government did campaign on getting rid of Three Waters and coming up with something different. All they really wanted to do was enter into a voluntary Three Waters agreement. All they had to do was leave the previous plan as it was without co-governance. They would have sailed through, we'd be underway by now. They didn't. So they've just, yeah. And I know we've had threats from the minister and different people, but yeah, I'll take it all with it. Yeah. But the reality here too, though, yeah, we have struggled with our water in the Kuta district. We've struggled with capital delivery. We've struggled with the operating costs. Something has to change. And so, option one, I questioned it for a long time. We did struggle to get information, but in the recently and in this last decision-making document, I have been comfortable with the model and the governance structures and where the shareholder council sits and what their role will be. And so I am, yeah, as I say, I'm going to reluctantly vote for it. I really see we have no other choice. We're going to get made. Otherwise.
Councillor Payne.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, yeah, I take on board everything that's just been said, and we have to start somewhere. That's an important point. We have to start somewhere. And I actually said earlier on that the devil is in the detail, and the all important things are the employment of the staff and the quality and what we're going to get in that respect. It is that statement of expectation. And this really has, I believe, has the potential to be something far better than what we're looking at right this minute.
From my perspective, we've always sort of had a choice. Do we take our first step onto solid ground, or do we knowingly take our first step into a lily pond? With this option, this Timaru and their Mackenzie Waimate conglomerate, I feel so sad for Waitaki, and there'll be further discussions with them. There's going to be a day of reckoning for a few others around us, and we know it. This is not the end of the journey. This is the first step, and we take a solid step onto solid ground that has a future. And in doing so, we write the rules. If we were to hold back endeavour, because right at the moment, who said one council, one vote? We have, as we've written the rules on all the structures that were raised by Councillor Wheeler and all the different iterations that we've gone through. We've been there, write the rule book. You step out, we come back into who knows what, and we kneel at their mercy. I don't intend to be doing that. There isn't the scale in the CCO, Councillor Catherwood, I'd openly agree with that, but it's 3 times bigger than what we have now. We have, over the last 5 years, just seen the opening of these new regulations and the inferno that it puts on us. In 5 years, this beautiful council of ours has been dragged mercifully, unmercifully, to about $100 million of debt and ungodly rate rises. That is the in-house scenario without the slight shielding umbrella that a CCO gives. And some of you say you want more of that. We can't take more. It's blinking obvious to the minister and the powers that be that will intervene that we're on the cusp. And you want more? 5 years, $100 million of debt, having to walk out and tell the ratepayers that we love that we're going to hit them with 24, 25% rate rises this year and next. That's what in-house is. And you want more of it? Well, I don't. I came here to do the right thing by the ratepayers, to shield them and protect them from themselves. That's what it has to be. Consequently, without hesitation, I'll be voting option 1. No, I don't close the debate. I did a welcome I never made a political statement. I thanked you, I thanked the teams, I thanked my councillors, and then I opened the discussion.
It's obvious risk.
Yeah.
Own it, mate.
Ah, well, I can own it. Does anyone else want to put their hand up? Have we exhausted the discussion? Shelley, I better check with you just in case my eyesight's not that good. Do you have anything you wish to say? I can't see you as. Oh, hold on. No, I still can't see. Thank you. No. Okay, so team, so that you know what we'll be doing on an important vote like this, it will be vote by division, which means that put your hands up, you hold them up as always. I'm terrified that it will be me that will suffer the wrath if we don't do it properly from my the representative here. So let's, when it's up, we hold them up until she nods that we put them back down, please, either way. So I'll be asking for 4 against and abstentions, so that all 3 are recorded and it's quite clear. We all are aware of what we're voting on. There's no need for another read, so thank you. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
All those that say no, please raise your hand and say no. No. I've got the nod. I've got the nod from that. Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you for your deliberation, councillors. If we can please go back to the third of the recommendations.
And just the point to make, Your Worship, now that you have resolved resolution 2A, it is important to resolve options 3 and 4. I would assume that they could be resolved together, Your Worship, as they apply to 2A.
I'll be willing if someone's got the courage to do both of them there. Here we've got Councillor Volwella, seconded with Councillor Ludeman. Then we've got recommendations 3 and 4. Matters open for discussion. No discussion. Shall we? Is there none? Right. Okay, we'll put it to the vote. Better do the same again for Angela. So all those in favour, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, Your Worship.
Those against, please. Oh, sorry, Ange. So we better go back up again. I'll drop that down thinking Ange had them.
10, that's 1 less.
Michelle. 11, Michelle.
Right, Andrew?
Got that, Ange? Those against, please raise your hand and say no. You've got to put it on. And those that abstain? Thank you. Where do we go from here? That's actually it. So that brings today's deliberations to a close. Thank you, staff. Thank you, members of the public.